Hello, friends, and welcome back to Stand Up Your Tubes, where we control the tubes and those tubes do not control us. So, I wanted to introduce you to Faith. Faith is an adorable bunny that has a secret. Not only is she really, really cute because of her big furry feet, her big glass eyes, and such a cute little face, but her secret is something you probably would be pretty unexpected. So let me pause the camera for a moment and I'll show you. Our cute little bunny has jointed hips. And so our bunny can stand up, lay down, or quickly sit up. And there's a little trick to getting them to work, which I'm going to show you in the tutorial. I hope you'll like, subscribe, and stick around to watch the tutorial and learn how to make a jointed creature. So God bless you, and let's get started. So we're going to start by making 2 body tubes on our 46 or 48 pin, 40 rows, and I just drew up the top part just a little bit to get some of the play out of it, took some of the slack out of the bottom of it to make it just a little more square before I put it up on the table. Then our head tube is going to be out of the fur yarn on our 22 pin. It's what makes it possible to put this little creature together the way we're going to put it together, because the fur yarn is so thick and luxurious. You do not need to double your tube up, and you can stuff it out so full that you will get a head that looks an awful lot like you cranked it out on your large Addi Express and not your little 22 pin. That's the beauty of it. So we're going to save fur yarn, so we have enough to do this project out of just one skein. And the Amazon skein is 71 yards, and I still have quite a bit left that I'll use on other places on my creature. So I'm going to crank on with my soft gray 4-ply, crank around one time, then tie on my fur yarn and crank till I get to 33 rows total. Then on this end, I am going to cast off with my fur. So that's how we get started with our body and our head. Okay, so let's get started with the body, and just a quick little, I think it's maybe just a quick little trick. By making 2 separate tubes, we don't have to put the drawstring in on one end. We can just pull one tube up inside the other. And now we have our double tube, and we can cinch it up a little bit on each end, not pulling it completely closed because we have to stuff it. And take some of the slack out of both sides, both ends. Now we have a drawstring on both ends, so we don't have to do over, under, and make a cord to pull. So let me get some stuffing. And at this point, I'm going to stuff the body really lightly because we're going to do something that's going to cause us to have to take the stuffing out if you choose to do this option. If not, then you'll just stuff your body out even firmer. So I have the body loosely stuffed and left it pretty open on each end, just enough to shape it a little bit. And now we're going to have a great big jackrabbit foot. So we're going to save fur yarn by cranking on with our 4-ply in a matching color, cranking around one time. We're going to make 2 of these, of course, big furry paws. So after you've got your first row cranked on, tie on your fur yarn, and then crank around until you have completed 27 rows. Then tie on your 4-ply again, crank 1 row, and cast off. And that'll give us a cord to pull on each end that's 4-ply. So for the toe, I keep it inside out. Make sure that when you switched from your 4-ply to your fur yarn, that you have a nice tight knot. So when I'm on my Addi, I just do the beginning of a knot, the one loop, Then when I get it off, I really cinch it up tight to get all the play out of it and put the rest of the knot in it. Then I can cinch it up really, really tight on the inside, tie my 4 plies together, and when I turn it, I have a nice, neat little toe. And that's how I did this one. And then we can do the same thing on this end. Make sure that we have a nice, secure knot where we added our 4 ply and our fur yarn to crank off with. And I like to tie off to the 4 ply. So I'm going to shorten these yarn tails just to keep them inside my foot tube and lightly stuff the paw. And I want to make sure that I don't overstuff it. Going for something like this. Maybe just a tiny little bit more. And when I get them looking the same, I made one for you, so it makes it a little bit harder to tell, but I think that's pretty good. I'm going to cinch it up really snug, find that little piece of 4 ply that just got lost where I tied my fur yarn on. Here it is. And that fur piece can just go inside, snug it up really tight. And by pulling this little piece of 4 ply out, that gives me something to tie off to and get this really nice and snugly closed. I would triple knot it just to make sure. And here's your little second little paw pad. So you'll need 2 of the leg tubes, and you'll crank those out on your 22 pin with your body color. And it is 70 rows times 2. So when you have both of your tubes, your 70 row tubes cranked out, fold it in half. Where we cinch it together is going to be the bottom of our leg. So let's snug it up, and it doesn't have to be just completely cranked down like we're making a beanie where we don't want anything to show. We need to have a long tail to sew with. I'll shorten one of them that I'm not going to sew with. This is the one that I'll tie off to when I get through sewing, and lightly stuff this out to get it a shape. Just to round out the bottom. So we'll thread up our needle. This is the back of our paw where we tied it. We're not overstuffing our leg. We want a graceful little rabbit. So we're going to kind of line it up just a little bit up from where we cinched it. And I start at the back so I can control it. So when I'm finished coming around, I'm at the right location on the back. Just coming in right about here. If you can see, here's where I cinched it. So just a little bit up from that because it's kind of rounded anyway. Leave this tail loose. And then when I come up into my leg, I counted 3 full stitches up. And you'll lose track of that, but it's just a guide to get started. And then go in through as much of your leg tube as you can. Even if you can get to into both layers, that's good. And if you are sewing and it's like this and you can't pull your needle through, you're just in the mesh that your fur yarn is sewn onto. So back the needle out and try again. Come in deep into your leg tube. You don't even have to worry about 1 row or 2 rows. It's just where you're coming out because you can't see what row you're in on your paw. You can't count rows in the fur yarn. Okay, so here's where you need to make sure you're lined up. So turn it around and face it towards you and make sure that you're lined up nice. And it's always good to take looks. Don't just assume that you're lined up right. Bringing it around the front, snugging it as I go. pulling on that yarn a little bit. Making sure I'm still looking good, and then I can bring it around, tie it off to this yarn tail, and bury everything. And then we'll come back and we'll talk about what we're going to do next. I got on Amazon and I ordered something that I've never used before, so we're going to try it together, and it is the joints. So I got a big one, and I'll give you the link because I wanted it to be not able to pull through anything. I did a little test, and it's easy to spread the yarn enough to put this post through. So this post would go in our leg, it would go into the body, then we put a washer on it, and then we pop the backing on it, and we have a joint. All right, if you have your foot sewn on, now we have to have a way to close the top of our leg up. So decide how they're going on, and on the outside, kind of a little bit at the back here, but not on the inside. If I put them on like this, I want to be able to tie my cord, cinch it up and whatnot. So I'm going to start like right over here on this one and go under a row, over a row, under a row, all the way around so that I can cinch up the top. I think probably everybody already knows how to do that, but if you don't, it's like this, right at the top. So I'm going to go around and then join you back. Here's where you have 3 choices. The first thing you can do is don't stuff out too much right at the very top here, because you don't want your rabbit to have great big huge fat haunches. So I usually stuff, and then when I get a couple fingers to the top, I stop. And you can literally just close up the top, pull it snug, line it up on your body tube, and sew around it. And you could sew it just right around like this, come up a little bit onto its legs so it stays forward. You could do both legs and have a sitting rabbit. Some people, like my sister, would sew them both on at the bottom here so the bunny could sit up, and then when a child carried it, they would hang down. And that's also a good way to do it. All right, so I'm going to look and see. I want to be able to close this up over the top of this joint. So right on the inside of my paw, I'm going to insert this through, being very gentle. And it went right through. And I want to make sure I have enough, I have at least a ½ inch right here so that I can close up around it. Let me give it a test. I think that'll work. And I might even need to add some stuffing on the other side of this joint. And now I can count my rows down so that I can make this one exactly the same. And it happened to be 9 rows down. And it looked pretty even. So with my lightly stuffed out tube, I want to position my legs so I think they look nice. I don't want them too far forward. Something like this. And this is why we didn't close up our tubes. So I want to be able to close it up on the bottom. So I don't want to get too close into the stuffing right here where we're going to draw it up. I want it to be able to come to the center. So I'm going to ballpark this row, and I will count it for you and come back in just a minute. But I did go up 12 stitches from the bum up this way. And so now with this one in, I'm lining this one back up, and I'm just going to visually mark it with my pin so I know about where I want it to be. And I'm going to count up 12. And I even counted the one that wrapped around. So right about here, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11. It's going to be right in this one. And I'm going to pull the stuffing out again. Line up my bottom. Make sure I have my toes up and go in through this one that I marked. Gently spreading the yarn apart. And what I like is that it's smooth. So now let's turn it down so we can get to the inside. And hopefully keep those still poking through the tube. If not, we'll do them one at a time. Okay, so now we're to the inside. And did this one, here we go. And here's where this one's poked through. Okay. So I know that I need to draw them together, that these legs are just going to wobble on the side of the body. So I'm taking a double yarn and I'm tying it around the post of this first one that I'm putting in. So I just have it tied around this post and it's doubled. And now I'm going to put my joint cap on. I'm getting the best result if I have it shaped this way so it's not pressing so hard on my inner part of the washer, because it just was making it too hard to turn. So I have them like this, and I'm going to tie these two yarn ends together so these are really close together. I want to wrap this around one more time so that they won't come up, get too far apart when we're stuffing it. So coming back in here, going to tie this in a nice triple knot. Don't short yourself on your yarn like I did. Start with a longer piece, it'll be easier to tie. Okay, so now my legs are on and I'm going to go ahead and stuff this out. I still have bows at the top of my leg tubes. So I'm going to get busy stuffing and then I'll come back on. And we have this now secured with that yarn in there so that when we stuff it, these legs aren't going to get further and further apart. Okay, so I have my body stuffed back up, a little bit of stuffing up in here to cover up our joint, and putting a bow in here just in case. Our legs are rotating really nicely without too much resistance, so I highly recommend putting, if you buy the joints, that you put them on going the opposite direction so there's not so much rubbing against this washer, because that really did make it hard to get these to rotate. So it's still nice and secure. All right, and now we'll work on our beautiful little head. Okay, so let's talk about how we're going to do our head. So I have it pretty well stuffed out. I have my new secret weapon, and it is this little tool I got from Amazon. There are so many varieties. I was worried that it was plastic, that it wouldn't be strong enough, but it worked really, really well. I'll give you the link to the one that I bought, and then you should also just look around and see what you can find. So these are our nice big pom-poms. And why invent the wheel when these make the cutest little rabbit faces? So I have two big white ones, then a smaller white one and a nice big black one to make the nose. And I'm going to put it up like this. And therefore, I want to place my eyes right about here. Just holding them in place. I'm going to go ahead and get that one in. And I'm going to go ahead and set that one, and then I'll line the other one up. What I like about the tool is I'm going to be able to do that pretty easily. So I'll just take a little bit of the stuffing out behind that eye, because I was trying to get my head really, really big. And make sure that I don't have anything between the backing and the post. This little tool is amazing. So it has a little hole on one end that the post goes through, so that'll go to the inside. And I'm going to line my post up in there. Make sure nothing is in the way. It was so amazing to use this tool after struggling so hard. Did you hear that snap? And it is on as easy as that. So I will not be going back. I am going to be using the tool. And I'm using these beautiful 24mm eyes that I've been using on my last several projects. They have different color backings that sparkle and shine through. So let's hold our little muzzle back up. Rest it right up against the feet. Don't want anything getting too far apart, so maybe about right there. So that was more stuffing than I intended to take out. Okay, maybe right about here. Line up the back. Put my new favorite tool on it. And snap it right on there. I love to hear that snap. And that's how I'm going to be doing it from now on. So I want to get all the stuffing back in my face so that it's really, really big and full. So it looks like it's the right size for my body. The eyes are cute. I'll be right back. Okay, I'm getting there, and what I do is I just keep pulling it out from the center and putting the stuffing down into the center. I'm going to get this last little bit in and start closing it up. And we can secure that in a minute. Okay, so now the eyes are in. Glue gun is heating up. Decide what kind of pom-poms you want to use. I experimented with different colors and decided that I just would use white, a black nose. So we need that underlip. We need our two big ones. I believe that these are, I'm going to measure them. I think they might consider these 2-inch and these to be 1-inch pom-poms. It's hard to measure a pom-pom. Okay, so getting them into position, getting the nicest side of the pom-pom showing. And of course, it's wanting to roll away. And the little nose, we want it to sit down into it, down into the top two pom-poms. So I'm going to glue on my first pom-pom, and you can always go back and add glue, but you can't take it away. So I just want this to stabilize my first pom-pom. Press that down, let it dry, and then I'll put the second pom-pom on. Okay, so I'm getting ready to glue on my second one. Lining it up under the eye. I actually put some stuff around it so that it wouldn't roll so bad. I'm going to bring the bottom lip up. We can always add more glue, but we can't take it away. And when the nose gets glued on, it doesn't just sit on top like that. We have to nestle it down in. Nestle it right down in here so that it has a better look to it. So we have a V right here where, we can pull it apart just like this. So I'm going to put just a little glue on the bottom right here into the center. Pop my nose down in and push it down in. Makes a really cute nose and a nice cute profile. So I'm going to let that dry, and then I'll have to add some more glue. What I'll do is I'll roll it up and see what it looks like. Maybe see if I need some under this one. I'll always put some right into the center here and then push them all together. And do that right now. Keep that nose down. And that's our cute little face. I don't know how it could be any cuter. I mean, when we have pom-poms that'll just do the trick, why not use them, right? Okay, so I can, let me see. Oh, I might just put a little glue right back here behind the nose to stabilize it. And then unplug with that glue gun. I think I'm done with it for a while. And that's our face. Our adorable little face. A little bunny face. So cute. Okay, so we have a really cute rabbit face. I'll just set it right here on its big old feet so it can look at me. And we need ears. So I am lining my ears with a yarn that is very, very silky, very fine. I know that I've bought yarn like this at Hobby Lobby. I don't know exactly what it is. It's super, super soft. And the reason I'm using it is so that I can get it to stay inside my ear and have a gray reveal. I don't want it to be the exact same size as my outer ear. So by using this really, really silky, I'm going to be able to roll it in a little bit on one side when I sew it so that it's a little bit smaller than my ear. So we're going to make the two outer ears, 22 pin, of course, 40 rows, and our little inner ear is of the very silky, and it's a 4-ply, although it almost feels like a 3-ply, 37 rows, so it can nestle up into the tip a little bit. So 40 and 37. And then when you get those cranked out, let's tie a knot in the bottom of the ear to close it up. Okay. And this now is the top of my ear. Cinch it nice and snug. Get a knot in here. And I'm going to leave my yarn tail because I'm going to sew halfway around, tie onto this yarn tail, and finish sewing around. So now I'm at the top of my other ear, other end of the ear. That'll be the top. So I'm going to start mattress stitching. I'm going to pick my rows. So I'm going to go with my points, bees going that direction. And I'm going to go the 2 bars, all the way down to the other end. Okay, I'm getting 2 bars. This is the top of the ear. And I'll just do a couple stitches with you and then get off camera. So just hold it like this, 2 bars, 2 bars. It's just mattress stitching. Okay, so I've mattress stitched all the way up. I'm taking all the slack out, but it's very easy to pull it too much and then start curving this up. And I did almost run out of yarn, but I had enough to make it up to the top. So I'm just going to tie off to this longer piece of gray. Oh, and I'll just leave that there because I like to have a piece of yarn to tie off to. Okay, so my pink are just going to go to the inside. And here's where we're going to get our reveal. So roll it in so that you have, just like this one, the pink is fewer rows than the outside. So I want to do the same thing here. Before I start sewing down, I'm going to roll this pink in a little bit, and that's why I'm using a really soft yarn so it doesn't cause too much bulk. If it was a sturdier Red Heart Super Saver kind of 4-ply, it'd probably be bulky. But you can see that we can just roll it in, and when we start mattress stitching the other direction, we're rolling it in and keeping our gray reveal on both sides. All right, so I have both of my ears done. And I've cinched up the top of my bunny's head, so I want to take this fur yarn and secure the top of the head. And it closes up really, really nice. And I'll just take a knot right here. Maybe a second one just to be on the safe side. And bury my yarn tail. And get ready to pop those ears on. Okay, I'm in the mesh. I'll try again. There we go. And save your yarn tails from your fur yarn to do adorable little eyelashes and whatnot. Look at that cute face. I love it. I think it's so cute. So let's get our little head up on top of our body. So I went ahead and closed up the top, and I'm just going to tie a knot up here. Snip my yarn down a little bit and just poke those down in that hole. Make sure you're happy with the amount of stuffing you have in your body before you do that. And we have our little legs that rotate. Shorten these down a little bit and put our head up on top, and we just sew around. So I'll be sewing right back in here onto here and going around, and this is where you decide, do you want your bunny to look straight ahead, a little off to one side? Okay, so I'm going to start by coming into my body nice and deep. I always start by tying a knot. And then this will be the yarn tail I tie off to when I've made it all the way around. So I'm going to be not too far off of where I cinched this closed. And bear in mind that if you get into the mesh, just back your needle out. Okay, coming down onto my body. Paying attention to where I'm sewing onto the bottom of the neck. I don't want to lose track of where I'm sewing. So coming around, and I'm going to go off camera and just keep sewing right on around. I've sewn one time around my neck and just leaving my yarn tails in case I decide I want to go around again. And I'm going to go ahead and position my ears up high on the head and just start sewing them on. I think I'll start on the underneath side. Start by tying my knot here so that I can come back around and tie off to this yarn tail. I like to put them both up there to see how I'd like to position them. Okay, so I'm just going to sew all the way around. Okay, so sewing across the bottom, then I'm going to sew across the top, come back around, and tie off to this yarn tail. So now all we need are our front paws and, of course, a bunny tail. So let's deal with our front legs. On our gray, we're just going to use our 22 pin, and we're going to cast on and knit 35 rows, tie our fur yarn on, and do 5 rows, then tie on the 4-ply and go around 1 time and then cast off with our 4-ply. And literally I have this much yarn left over. 2 of these that are this size. That's how close it was. And this little end right here. And that was using my 71 yards. But if you order it on Amazon like I did, you're going to get 2 skeins. And so you'll be safe. And I have to tell you that I do believe the ones that you get at Hobby Lobby are only 60 yards, not 71 like the Amazon. So you could come up short to make these great big feet and this furry head and then have enough for the paws. So once you get that cranked out, make sure you've tied knots where you switched from 4-ply to your fur and that you have those ends all secured. And then just snug up the top over some fingers to get a lot of that play out of there. And so what we're going to do is find our yarn that allows us to snug up the end of our fur here. We're letting it roll up onto our arm. So the fur is on the purl side, but it's rolling up, and we're snugging this up to make a cute little paw. And it's curled up onto our knit side. And then the little 4-ply yarn tail you have right here where you tied onto the fur so that we could cast off with it. Get this really nice and snug, and then you can tie off to that yarn tail. All right, and that closes up our arm. I'll tell you what we're going to do with the rest of these yarn tails in a minute. But thread up your needle. Now stretch it out. Figure out where your rows are going to be and mattress stitch all the way. Get up underneath this fur right here and mattress stitch it to the end. We're going to lightly stuff it, so you might want to get halfway and lightly stuff. Here's the one I've already done. So it's not overly stuffed, but enough to give it some shape. So I'll come back when I'm done with this. Okay, so I have both of them sewn all the way up and very gently stuffed so they're not stiff. And I'm going to, like I've done on some other projects. Just pull this mattress stitch a little bit so that when we put the paw on, it gently curves towards the tummy. So with that gentle curve on there, I'm going to tie these two yarn tails together. I've cinched the top of the beanie closed, made sure that my mattress stitch was snug all the way. And I can sew with this long yarn tail, so I'll do the same thing to this one. Already have it gently stuffed, pulling the mattress stitch a little bit, get that gentle curve on it, not too much, and tie these together. And then the way I finish off the bottom of the paw is this long yarn tail. I'm going to thread up my needle. And I have a yarn tail on this side, so I'm going to bring it in and kind of come out on this little edge right here of my fur yarn. So I actually kind of went into the edge of the fur yarn, and I'm going to tie these yarn tails together. And that's going to help close up the bottom of the paw. And I knew I was really close on running out of yarn, so I have a very short yarn tail where I tied onto at the beginning, and a nice long one where I ended up having enough. And now when I bury these yarn tails, that kind of closed the end up, and we're ready for the final step on the body, which is sewing on the arms and attaching a big pom-pom tail. All right, so I shortened one of the yarn tails that I'll just tie off to, thread up a needle, and position our arms onto our bunny so that they're like this, up close to the head, kind of lined up with the leg right here. And I'm going to just start sewing mine on. And I'm going to come up onto my arm a little bit away from where we cinched it up so that I get a better look. I have nicer stitches to go into that way. Coming straight up, following my row straight up at this point. And because you've cinched up the top of this tube, you can go under a couple rows at a time on the arm tube. And then start sewing back down this way. And I like to come a couple fingers onto the body and sew like this so my arm isn't just flopping. So get yours sewn on, and let's see what it looks like. We'll come back and put the tail on. My arms are on. They're pretty much lined up with the leg, under the ear. It's back a little bit because they're nice and long, so you don't have to have them up here. You know, get them back so you get a nice profile. So I never did bury my yarn tails from sewn on my head because I was going to go around a second time. And now that everything is on the body and done, I am going to go around a second time. And just work my way around till I get back around to the front and then tie off to that original yarn tail. And this is where you can sturdy your head if you need to by coming a little bit further out onto your shoulders, a little bit higher up into your head. It's just your fine tuning. So if you wanted to bring your head up a little bit, you would bring it back a little bit further onto the body back here when you were sewing. So I'm just coming a little bit further down onto the body to stabilize the head and lift it up a little bit. And when I get back around to the front, I'll tie off and bury my yarn tails. Okay, it's pom-pom time. So I have my biggest pom-pom, and to make it go quicker, I used 2 strands at a time as I was wrapping, and I got 95 wraps on both sides, but that's with the double yarn. It made it go so much quicker. So I've got it closed up, and I was using really knotted white yarn that I knew I wasn't going to be able to really use on the knitting machine because of all the tangles and everything. So you'll see where I had to start and stop and cut off tangles and stuff. So I was glad I had it to use for the pom-pom. And just snipping it loose, we're going to have such a nice big tail. We can trim it if it's too big. Alrighty, so I'm taking a double strand and tying this off. Making sure I get right onto that post in the middle. And there we have it. Give it a few good knots. Wrap it up on the top side and do it again. Do not want this to come apart. All right, ready to open it up. There we go. That is a beautiful, thick, fat, lush pom-pom. Because I had to start and stop so many times, when I get into an insurmountable knot in my yarn, I have a lot of long yarn tails here to deal with. So get yours trimmed up. I'm not going to overdo it. And we have a beautiful big pom-pom for the back, and it kind of rounds that back out nicely. So thread up a needle. And we're using double yarn. Bring this tail up into its butt. Going in this way, bringing the yarn tails out. Then do the same thing with this, but go in the other direction. So this time, instead of left to right, I'm going right to left. Pull these together. Check it out. I like it that it's nice and big, and it's resting down on the table, so I can knot this off. Flip it over, knot it off on the bottom side, and then cut these off and just let them be part of the pom-pom. All right. The ears are in the way, but there's the big pom-pom tail coming around. Great big feet. Let me see if I can reposition my camera. Okay, so let's do our final body shaping. So I threaded up a needle and it's doubled. My yarn is doubled. Came in at the back where my pom-pom is, brought it straight out to where you could imagine a belly button would be, went over a couple rows, came back out at the tail, and I'm just going to snug this up with a bow for now. Okay, so that just kind of brings our tube in so it's not so fat this way. So I'm going to double this the way I did the other one, just so it's stronger. Hope that's long enough. And I'm going to come in kind of under its armpit at its shoulder here. Come out at the same point, just kind of right here on its armpit over here. Put my finger in the loop so it doesn't pull all the way through. And then skip a couple rows, at least a full row, and come back a couple rows away from where we first went in. And we can pull the shoulders together a little bit. And get those shoulders in. It's just a better profile not to have its body be so fat up there. So I'm going to go ahead and tie a single beginning of a knot here. Cinch it up a little bit. Decide how far in I want to bring it. Probably about like that, and tie it. And bury the yarn tails. So we tied it up underneath the armpit. Now we have a narrower body. It's cuter. We're controlling our tubes. I lost my yarn tails in my fur here, in my little bunny tail. So I'm going to start over. Okay, and just bringing that tummy in. And tying this. And you can bury those yarn tails. And then it's looking so cute. I made a little purple pom-pom on my pink Pom Pom Maker, not the smallest one, and just put it up there between the head. And then I just wanted something to make it look like it maybe had, just because Easter's coming, a little bow tie or something. So this is the same yarn as the inside of my ears. It's real silky and soft. It doesn't have any bulk to it. So I made it 50 rows long. I could have made it 55. So next time I would have made it 55. I wanted it to look like it just had a little bow tie on. So you can see how short it is. 5 more rows would have added an inch, but it's still long enough to bring it in a little bit off to the side and cinch it up, and it looks like it has a little bow tie on. I didn't want it to be like a full-size scarf. Okay, and so there we have it, just looking adorable. We sculpted the body a little bit, shaped it, gave it a little bit of a belly button that the paws will hide. If you went the route that I went, you have legs that now rotate. So our little bunny can lay down, can lay on its side, could pose a little bit. Just something fun to try. And there we have it. A face that any child would love. All right, so now that I have, this was a prototype, so now that it's finished, I'm going to film the beginning and hope that you'll agree that this turned out really cute and that you'll like, subscribe, that you watch the tutorial, and that you'll be coming back to stand up your tubes to see new creations. I try to put one out every week, if possible, if my job permits and if my time permits. Well, thank you for watching, and God bless you.